Another computing environment is cloud computing, so which supports consists of traditional operating systems, plus VMMs, the virtual machine management, and plus network connectivity, and plus cloud management tools. So down below, this figure shows us the formal cloud computing architecture. So within the cloud computing company, there are numbers of servers which support different operating systems. For each server, the virtual machine are installed there. You can see here. That is why we need VMMs. So in each virtual machine, different software or applications are installed there to provide service to the users. So from the local or to the users from the outside who connect to the cloud computing through the internet. So due to the network attacks or malicious users exist on the other side of the internet, so the firewall is needed to protect the servers and the cloud computing networks. And also the load balancer, which is special devices are needed to distribute the traffic and the request to different servers in order to avoid that all the requests are sent to the same server to make it overloaded, while other servers are idle there, which waste the resources, energy, and money. Then how can the user to communicate with cloud computing? Actually through cloud customer interface. So due to different kind of cloud computing, the cloud customer interface are different as well. For example, here list numbers of cloud computing. So for public cloud computing is the one to provide service to anyone in the public. The customer will pay the service by time or CPU cycles. Another type is private cloud computing. So the service is only provided to certain domain of users. So for example, the universities, only the students, faculties, and the staff within the university, so they can use this cloud computing. The last type of cloud computing is a hybrid cloud. So some servers of the cloud computing can be provided to the public. So when the servers are not in used by the inside users, and the other part of the servers are reserved by inside users. So for example, Google Data Center is this kind of cloud computing. According to the service types, the cloud computing can also be divided into different categories. So SaaS, which is shorted for software as a service. The software or applications are provided as a service to the users. A good example is Microsoft Office 365. So you can use the full function of Office so through this service without paying money for the full version, right? Which is quite convenient and save you a lot of money. The second type is PaaS, which is shorted for the platform as a service. So the cloud computing provides a platform to the users as a service. For example, the Google Cloud can provide a Python platform to the users. So you can do whatever you want, which depends on the Python environment. And the last type is IaaS, so which is shorted as infrastructure as a service. So which means the cloud computing can provide a virtual machine to the users. So the users, they can install whatever types of operating system there and install any software there. So which can make you feel that you are using your own computer remotely. The last part of this chapter is open source operating system. then you may have a question. So what is the major difference between open source operating system and a closed source operating system? So for the closed source operating system, the creator may hide all the details from the normal user. So as the normal user, so you can only use the features provided by the operating system. All the rules are already built inside the operating system. So unless the creator makes a modification as update, otherwise the normal user can do nothing inside. So on the other hand, the open source operating system will provide the entire source code of the operating system to all the users. And each user, they can freely add new features into the operating system and also customize the operating system to whatever they want according to their requirements. Open source operating system counters to copy protection and the digital rights management movement. And this movement is started by Free Software Foundation. Sometimes they also call it a copyleft, which is a counter to copyright, or we call it a GNU public license, so it's shorted as a GPL. When we download the source code from the internet, so you may find the GPL at the beginning of the code. So I will show you guys a real example of a GPL in the next slide. So there are numbers of examples of open source operating systems. So for example, the GNU Linux, and also the Linux you installed in the virtual machine is also open source operating system. So I know most of you guys use Microsoft, not Microsoft, you use a Mac OS. So I know most of you guys use a Mac OS. And the most part of the Mac OS actually is with the copyright. However, a piece of the core part of the Mac OS is open source because it is built upon BSD Unix, so which is open source. And also Android is another open source operating system for the mobile devices. And some students may ask that, so since we have a closed source operating system and open source operating system, then which one is better? So actually, there is a trade-off between these two types of operating system. First, let's see the closed source operating system, such as Windows or Mac OS. The creators will hide all the details from the normal user. Therefore, the closed source operating system is much more stable. There's less bugs and efficient compared to the open source operating systems. And also, closed source operating system supports more applications than the open source operating systems. So whenever the bugs happened in the operating system, the creators, they will fix it as soon as possible. And however, the normal users, they cannot modify the closed source operating system, and also they cannot add new features into the system as they want because the source code is not available to the public. And on the other hand, the open source operating system can provide all the source code to all the users. So if you want to know more details about how the operating system manage each resources in the operating system, you can check the source code and figure it out. So like the process management, memory management, storage management, cache management, and I/O management, etc. So beyond those details, so you can add new features into the operating system as you want, or customize the operating system as you need it. And also, the open source operating system is free for charge. So, however, since the designer of open source operating system may not be expertise. So when you download the source code, you may think that, so can I trust this source code or not? It is possible maybe there are some security issues there or protection issues there, or maybe some virus inside the source code. So therefore, to select which type of operating system, you have to think about it very carefully before you make the decision according to your desire. So whether the stableness or efficiency is your top priority or the freedom is your top priority. So you need to think about it very carefully. Here is a real example of a GPL, as we already mentioned in the previous slide. So you may see that this GPL many times. So when you download the source code from the internet, I'm not going to talk about the details there. Maybe later. So when you want to post some open source code to the internet, you may also need to add this GPL at the beginning of your source code to further follow the copyright requirement there.